come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today.
So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Here we are on the vlog on the blog. We have a special guest that's no surprise to anybody who listens to our program on Family Hour. This is Will O'Brien. Will, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Morning. Good morning. Good to see you, boys. Glad to be a part of the show.
Yeah, this is your first time on the vlog on the blog, though, is it?
We did one before. We did a little bit of my background.
Okay.
And did a little.
So you
bit
were
of
an early
that.
guest on this.
An early guest.
It just seems like a lifetime ago that we began the on the daily. So
a whole shabua ago.
Yeah, you know, I think of you as with your son there on contributing on Family Hour. But we did an early vlog on the vlog where we were able to go through your background and how you got to this place. So you're not really on the hot seat at all anymore. You're just here to comment and add your 2 cents as we go along, aren't you? Yeah. All right. Go great.
Yep.
So we can jump right into the vlog on the vlog, unless you all want to chat a little bit about what we're learning about a really big ship that isn't an ark at all, or whether we deal with that later. But yeah,
let's go.
All right. Well, I came up with
let's get into it.
Yeah.
All right, we're doing a series called Luminaries.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that's listening to these programs. And the series with Luminaries is Coming Home Volume 6. And to give you just a bit of a background for everybody, I wrote Coming Home Volumes 1, 2, and 3 anywhere from 8 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, somewhere in that range. And I had moved to other series, like Volume 9 of Yada Yah, which is the Time of Troubles, and rewriting all of the books and doing a whole lot of other things, and decided that I would return to the Coming Home series with Coming Home Volume 4, which is Bashar Herald. And I got about 350 pages or so into that volume, and we were tracking right through the Psalms, I think 33rd, 34th, and 35th, which are really interesting, what they have to say about Dowd. And then we got our lives upended because of Miss Leah coming in with the 31st Mashal and saying, I think this is going to change everything. We need to figure this one out. And it was transformational. The last word picture. And it has in it we have a terrible echo all of a sudden. It has in it the story of the Amah as the productive mother. She is the Ashar, the most beneficial and blessed of women. She's called the greatest of all women. And we learn that she is another iteration of Ruth, who identifies herself as the Amah, this productive woman who delivers the kinsman redeemer. She is married to, and the man refers to himself as her husband, Baal. And it's to Boaz, but under this particular iteration, he's going by the name Perpetually Deployed, which is Ethan. And when we came upon that, it was so transformational, so expansive, and our understanding of how God's story is playing out and how he keeps his plans on track, fulfilling what he knows needs to be done to resolve the issue of humankind without interfering with free will. And what you realize is that Ethan and his wife, that isn't their first time around the paddock. They've been there before, and then you trace all of the words and the titles through. You come face to face with Leah and the birth of Asher, in which she declared as she is Ashar, blessed and beneficial among all women. And then you have to deal with Ruth, who announced that she is the Amah and that she would deliver the kinsman redeemer to Boaz. Then you have to deal with the fact that the Ruth and Boaz story may be the most profoundly important prophetic portrait written in the entirety of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. And then it led us all the way back to, and so we began a book like that and actually completed it just recently. It's now, I think, 650 pages completed. It's going through the final edit process, but we're going to do a pre-publication of it and Bashar Herald, this one called Mashal Word Pictures, obviously. And that was volume 5 of Coming Home. And it was being written concurrently with volume 4. But not to be outdone, we're writing volume 6 of Coming Home, concurrent with volume 4 and 5. And it is Maoreth, which are the luminaries. And this is the series we're doing in our basic series called Luminaries. And it begins with the first prophecy, maybe the most important prophecy in the Torah, and that is the Gadol and the Katan Maor, greater and lesser luminaries, and the role they play in fulfilling the Moedim, the 7 annual meetings. And so in the midst of all of that, I wrote about every time the sun and moon are become part of the story as the greater and lesser luminaries. And then we went back through the iterations of these individuals as they are represented by the trees in the garden, the tree of knowledge and the tree of lives. And then as Adam, as Yahweh's firstborn, and Chanowk, the man who would be routinely deployed in support of Yahweh's firstborn and in support of what God once achieved at the toughest times in man's history. And the hardest of those times, of course, probably the single most crucial juncture in the Salma man history. The Salma man is the animal humanoid that was given a Nasalma conscience so we could be like God. And when God said, I made a horrible mistake in creating man, and I regret having done so. And he realized, and he said emphatically, the problem with man is that, well, he's not very good individually. Collectively, he's really, really awful. He's just flat out evil collectively. And so as men proliferated, humankind became ever more repulsive to God. And so he wanted just to eliminate the whole experiment. It was all over. And yet 1,000 years had transpired. And during that 1,000 years, Yahweh had a pretty darn good relationship with a fellow named Chanowk. And he cared a lot about Adam, his firstborn. And so you got Adam and Chanowk up there in Shamaim. We're looking down at this mess with Yahweh. And, sometimes you got characters that just can't keep their yap shut. I am absolutely convinced that as we were looking down on this whole thing, we were concerned. We lost Will there for a moment, went completely black. That just as there you came back, just as we were watching all this and God saying, I think I'm going to do the whole thing in. Let's wrap it up. Let's call it quits. I don't know if Yahweh was just playing with us when he had them. This conversation is not recorded anyplace, so you can say I'm speculating if you want. But I know Yahweh pretty well, and I know myself pretty well, and I'm pretty sure this is how it went down because God knew that when he was delivering the Torah to Moshe what was going to happen. So he knew that the two of us, his firstborn and the younger fella, the Katan Mayor, were going to be the men that chose to fulfill the Moed Mikre, but we weren't going to get anywhere close to them. God wanted to just eliminate humankind. And so I'm pretty convinced that I said, no, come on, God, let's okay. They're a mess. They're absolutely a mess. And the problem is that many of them are so much worse than a lot of them. Let's see if we can figure this out. What if we come up with a way where we just cull the herd? We prune
it back a little bit. Yeah.
Branches. Yeah. Let's just do some pruning. Let's do some culling. And let's see if we can start again. And God says, but there's nobody to start with there, pal. So, great idea. And then I'm sure I put my foot right in my mouth and said, oh, yeah, you can send my wife and I back down. We'll go. She's saying, we're going to do what? We're going down there. Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Would you please shut up? Yeah, come on, Mrs. Chanowk. We're going back down. And Dowd saying, what about me? And I said, yeah, you'll be there too. You're going to be Shem.
Give it a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, just chill, kid. Chill, kid. We got you covered. You're going to be part of this. And we'll tell a story. We'll tell a story. And it won't be about an ark, will it?
No.
You know how we got the term ark?
Rich was talking about that. Yeah, it's
Latin?
completely Latin.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, you can't tell Rich anything. I was just having breakfast with him. Went over the story at breakfast to keep it, so we could talk about it. And Rich already spilled the beans. What kind of a producer is Rich? Just kidding.
Gave us the heads up.
Film at 11. Neither the mercy seat of the covenant, nor the large vessel that was designed by Yahowah and built by Noach are arks. Now, I've written ark 1,000 times. And shame on me for never bothering to see how do we get ark from either of those two. The Kaporeth, the mercy seat of the covenant home, is an Aaron. Without the nun at the end, it means to behold. With the nun at the end, it would be behold the Son. But even the words before that, it is the bull who was an observant and thoughtful man, the A and the Rosh, the Aleph and the Rosh. And then you have a Wah. Support, augment, magnify the Son, which is the life's work, all 8 of them for the bull. That's what he does. And it's the bull's blood that is sprinkled on it that resolves the issues, interestingly enough, not of Israel. When the bull's blood is sprinkled on the mercy seat on Kippurim, by the high priest who will be Dowd upon his return, do you know that the blood of the bull has nothing to do with the guilt of Israel?
No.
That's provided by the goat.
Okay. The scapegoat. Yeah. Okay.
The blood of the bull resolves the guilt of the person applying it. In other words, I shed my blood as the Adam of Parah for Dowd. So when he sprinkles the mercy seat of the ark, not the ark of the covenant, the Aaron Bereth, he is, it's my blood purges him.
Yeah, that's crystal clear now because it says right there, Aaron will take the blood and put it on the mercy for his own, yes, for going astray, absolutely,
correct. So there you have it. That's the Aaron Bereth, which we should call the Aaron Bereth because that's what it is. So the other thing, when you read it in any English translation, or now coming to find out Latin translation, you'll see that both are described using the same word, and yet it's not the same word in Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
It's Teba in Hebrew.
Teba
is the other one. Not Aaron, it's Teba. And that is a tree that builds the home of man, is how the letters play out. There are 3 cognates of Teba in Hebrew. The first of those, the closest to it, speaks of somebody with considerable cerebral acumen, who is extraordinarily logical and rational in processing information, deduces insights which lead to understanding. Okay, that seems to apply.
Yeah, we know a guy.
The second is the same individual is responsible for yielding a productive harvest. Seems to
Still
apply
on
pretty well
track.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the third is to forestall the elimination and the extermination of humankind. So it is a ship of insights. It is a vessel for the harvest to preclude the extermination of Nesama man. Teba. How's that for a more instructive, more insightful meaning? And for God's sake, I'm going to foreshadow everything that you need to know about all of this just in the titles that I chose. And all of that just goes away by the Roman Catholic Church changing both to ark, because arca is the Latin word for box.
Mm-hmm.
All tossed away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you almost have to be careful now about, because it is Aaron Bereth Yahweh, right? And just as the also Bereth Shem Yahweh. Okay, it is the home for Yahweh's name. It is Yahweh's Aaron, but it's no longer Noah's Ark anymore, is it? I mean, it is Yahweh's Teba, right? So
and it just comes off the tongue. We've said it so many times,
right?
It's like removing Lord from our vocabulary, even though there are. Even Dowd refers to, I've in the 89th Mizmor, I referred to Yahweh using Adonai. So it is a term of respect in ancient Hebrew. But we have tried to purge our language of Lord. And it's hard because you've spent 50 years saying it, so it doesn't it doesn't get eliminated from every thought. And how many times have we said Noah's Ark? How many times have we said Ark of the Covenant? And now we know that we're shortchanging Yahweh. It's his terms. He ought to get, it's disrespectful for us to change the name.
Well, it's also
particularly to go
shortchanging
to a
our
Latin name, which is
understanding.
Roman Catholic.
Yeah, it completely shortchanges our understanding of the story as well when we do that, because it draws a different mental picture away from what is actually occurring.
Teba.
Yeah, names have meaning. What we call things
a ship of
as a
insights,
consequence.
a ship of insights, a vessel for the harvest. Tell me that's not better than the Latin word for big box.
Right.
Yeah.
And
another example of how we get shortchanged by religion.
Yes, exactly.
Renaming things. Yeah.
Yep. So it's just a fascinating study. So right now I'm going through the dimensions of the Teba, this vessel for the harvest, and this ship of understanding. And we always render it as 300 cubits, 50 cubits, and 30 cubits. That's not actually what the words say. It's 3 means of magnifying and enabling and empowering to the maximum possible extent. So it's meod is the term, and it's rendered 100, but the meaning of the word is to magnify, equip, empower to the absolute upward extent of capability. And so it's 3 of those. Pursuant to the work of the Amah. Amah is mentioned 3 times. Amah can mean cubit, hand and forearm, reaching out, helping, loving, caressing, providing gifts. But we have come to know, because of the last mashal, have we not, that Amah is a lot more than that, isn't it? Amah is
absolutely.
M, which is mother, with the ending. So it's the complete capacity, the utmost ability of the mother. So most productive mother. So I thought that was also pretty interesting as we were pursuing this, that it is the most productive of mothers. And then on top of that, you have the first, which is rendered length, which is actually a word that to elongate, so that you can endure, to be steadfast, but to endure. You know, it says that your mother and father will, respect for them will elongate your days on the Adamah, will elongate your days on the Adamah. With the Adamah, this productive bloody red man of the earth, that's what it speaks of. And so there'll be 3 occasions where the Amah, the productive mother, is going to play a role that considerably elongates our lives. And that's the first dimension. The second dimension is the Hebrew word for 50. And 50, it's used commonly to describe Shabuah, 50 days from Matzah. And so that's the next word in the list. And it's also something that is the Amah makes a significant contribution to. And it is here, again, to enrich and empower, which is the purpose of Shabuah. And the third is the plural of 3. So many things are going to happen over 3 events. That's the fulfillment of Chag Sukkah. And so those are actually the instruction from the dimension. So it just goes on and on. It's the things that you can learn when you take the time just to say, what is being said on the surface? What is being said that has value to the relationship beneath this? So having a lot of fun. It's amazing how much more you can see and learn and share when you go back over material, because, this was in the 2nd volume of Yada Yah, which I wrote initially 20 years ago. And I really haven't had a reason to go back and retranslate everything pursuant to Noach in the past 20 years. So now you go back and you know who the Amah is, and you know who her husband is, and you know who Noach is, and who Shem is, and now you know that it's not an ark; it's a vessel of understanding for the harvest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's amazing. it's amazing, as we peel back the layers of the onion here, how significant the role of Amah is, and looks like she's going to be playing a very prominent role here as well. She steps in she's there at the most difficult times, and it's a remarkable story of Ruth and Boaz told over, again and again. But I can't, not that I'm shocked, but I'm pleasantly surprised at Leah's sort of, her definition in all this, who she is and how that's playing out for her. And we certainly know her as very productive.
To her extreme discomfort, but yes, indeed. And, it serves her right. She found it. We wouldn't have come upon this. She'd have snuck right through had she not come to say, there's twice when I almost peed in my pants, is to use her own vernacular, waiting for you to translate something because I think it's transformational. The first time was the 89th Mizmor, which is, you really need to stop everything you're doing. I know that you're writing and everything else. Just stop. Trust me on this. Stop. Translate the 89th Mizmor. And it was the single most important thing we ever did. And then she did just 5-6 months ago. She came in with the 31st word picture, the last mashal, and said,
"Stop what you're doing.
Stop what you're doing. I'm not leaving here until you stop what you're doing. Right now, you're going to read the damn thing to me in Hebrew, and we're going to talk about what the words mean as you read it to me in Hebrew, and then you're going to go and translate it and share it, because I don't like what this is saying, but I think I know what it's saying." And so here we have Ashar, going right back to Leah giving birth to Asher and saying that she is the most beneficial and blessed of women. She is and this Mizmor ends and says, "You are the most important and the greatest of all women. You are Ashar. You're a blessing and benefit akin to Leah." And it refers to her as Dowd's mother, and Dowd goes on and waxes poetic about his Amah that Yahowah gave to him, and it isn't his birth mother. It is the Amah who is the productive mother. And then you go back to Ruth, and Ruth is the one who announces twice that she is the Amah, and she's going to deliver to Boaz the kinsman redeemer. And oh my, from that point, the floodgates of understanding are opened. It fundamentally changed what we thought. And what we know is that now, as we trace through all the names and the characters and the personalities and the timing of events, that there were two Chanowks, both the same soul, both with the same purpose: support the firstborn. And then the second, and he was married. His wife is not mentioned by name, but he was married because they gave birth to Methuselah, the longest lived individual. And what you find is that he lives through Adams, who is the firstborns, a full life. And he's taken by Yahowah shortly thereafter because he has 50 years, long 50-year vacation with his wife before being redeployed as Noach. Because when we turn to the story of Noach, it's obvious that there is no one on earth. That's why, having this conversation with God between the three of us, Dowd, Noach, my wife and I, and I'm Chanowk here, and we're having the conversation and say, let's go and create a lifeboat. I mean, let's build a lifeboat. I'll captain the daggone thing. Yeah, we need a lifeboat. Let's call the herd, and God said, but there is no lifeguard. There's not one of them that we can work with. And point said, what does my name mean? Trained and deployed. Let's do her again. And you know, I know about this woman here. We'll have some kids, and there you go. We'll repopulate Nasalmaman. And Noach's name is Chanook's name, reversed order. The Chanowk is the Chet plus the Nun son, and Noach. It's only 2 letters in Noach's name. The Nun son and the Chet. It's just the reverse order. So that's how that all came into being. And when Yahowah describes Noach, he uses exactly the same words that he used to describe Chanowk. Independent operator, separate from humanity, unaffected by religion and politics, which is what caused him to be right with God. And their first conversation is one that it would be absolutely impossible for God to have had if they did not have a relationship, which is that, all right, people are disgusting. They're revolting. I'm done with them. I'm here to tell you we're wiping out Nasalmaman. Oh, yeah, well, good. Happy day to you, too. It's nice to meet you, God. You know, my name is Noach. You said you want to do what now? Yeah, that's right. I'm wiping out Nasalmaman. So that wasn't their first conversation. But it set all of these events into place. So marvelous story. But then we get to Ruth. She's not named in that story. She's obviously there. She's the mother of the 3 boys, and particularly Shem, who is, as the name gives birth to what will become Yisrael via Babylon, by the way. And then by the time you get to the Ruth and Boaz story, which is right after the Shaphat Judges, it's really an early story. And you find that Boaz is the unofficial mayor and the chief potentate of Bethlehem, a large landowner, very active in growing barley and wheat for harvest, well respected in the community. And Ruth is a widow, and she's childless, and she makes the great speech of all time. Where you go, I go. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. One of the great stories of all time. One of the great speeches of all time. And she's fiery. She's bright. And you know, when Boaz first meets her and she's in the field outworking everybody on behalf of Naomi, you know, Boaz goes up to her and she wants to explain who she is. And it says, sweetheart, I know who you are. Trust me on this. I know who you are. All I would have to say is that, you know what, you have a wonderful reputation. And then he said, I'm turning to all of my other Amah. Don't mock this woman. Do not say anything derogatory about her. That will really not work very well for you. So that's my advice, is that you support her in what she wants to do, but do not mock her. That would be a really bad life choice. It's just such an endearing story. And then how they come together and why she announces just out of the blue, I am your Amah. I'm your productive mother. And I'm going to deliver the kinsman redeemer to you. That was, she then served as the kinsman's redeemer's great grandmother. By the way, the way of Obed was their son at that time, which means works. And then you see them reappear as a husband and wife, a mother and father, as Ethan Ha is Rocky, and she is just known by her titles, Amah, in that role, when our great grandson, now wayward king has fallen flat on his face. I mean, he has fallen so far that there's no interaction between he and God anymore. They're not talking anymore. Nothing. I mean, it's just total silence, except for God speaking through other prophets, Nathan and Gad, saying, "You're despicable, pal. You may be my son, but I'm going to tell you, you're despicable." And it just got so bad. We're right back to the situation of watching the fallen, which does not mean giants. It means the fallen. When Chanowk is up there with Yahowah, and we're talking about how we're going to resolve this situation, now we have the fallen is God's firstborn. And we're back up in Shamaim, and we're looking down at this and saying, this is our grandson. This is our son, is Shem, and now he's our grandson as Dowd. God, how much longer are you going to let this thing go? Because it may not be salvageable.
Running out of time.
If we continue to let this thing fester, because it's in a terrible spiral at the moment. So it's the second worst moment in human history, where if Dowd doesn't recover, there is no fulfillment of Chag Matzah. And without that, there is no hope for life, for any kind of innocence before God, for the covenant. It means that none of the 7 Moed Mikre would be fulfilled. No hope for life on the planet. No relationship with God going forward. So that's the second time we got deployed. And it's obvious that who the players are. And Ethan is named. His wife is not, but it's because you ought to be able to figure it out. His wife is Ruth. He's Boaz.
Yeah, how many times do we have to repeat the theme for you not to see it coming
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Right. They're here to redeem the kinsman redeemer. Are they not? And that's, if they can't redeem the kinsman redeemer, there is no kinsman redeemer. And he had really, really lousy parents in that life. And he was a mess. And the last word picture, the 31st Mashal, is the story of her speaking to him about who he was. He needed to stop drinking, to stop looking at women as objects, and to embrace the fact that he is the very son of God, and what that means, and that he has the responsibility of a king. And with that is a responsibility. And you can't act like a sluggard and a drunkard under those circumstances. She read him the riot act.
Yeah.
And he came a long way. But the hammer was the 89th Mizmor. And that's when Ethan corroborated with Yahowah and delivered the single most important message I think ever written for humankind, for him, for everybody. So that was the second iteration of Ruth and Boaz, where she would have been known by that name. She would have been known clearly as Ruth in that circumstance. I use the pen name Ethan to describe that, being redeployed again. Yeah, here we go again. Same job. Different title, same job. Then it becomes obvious, if you're paying attention, that the mother and father delivering the kinsman redeemer are Ruth and Boaz. And so they literally hooked up again in 2 BCE and delivered Dowd as Emmanuel and supported him so that he would be able to fulfill Chag Matzah in 33 CE. It probably is confusing to some people in terms of the math if I say that he was conceived probably on Sukkah in 2 BCE and that he fulfilled Chag Matzah in Abib of 33 CE. Most people say, well, that would make him 35 years old. No, it makes him 33. And that's hard to understand because the Roman Catholics
Right.
and the Romans were not smart enough to add a year 0. So you go from 1 BCE to 1 CE as if it were no year 0. So you got to account for the fact that there is no year 0. And then second, if you're conceived, born in the fall, in the 7th month on Sukkah, and you go away on in the 1st month of Abib, your birth, your timing is your age does not tick up 1. So that takes it to 34, and the no year 0 takes it to 33. So it's 33 years old when he fulfilled in 33 CE Chag Matzah with the support of his mother and father, who were Ruth and Boaz.
33 and a third.
33 and a third, baby. Yeah, 33 and another 3. Just like there's 3 Amahs in the story of the dimensions of the ark. Yeah, it's we're just like there were 3 iterations of Ruth. Couple is Leah, mostly unknown, but yeah, both characters play a big role in this story, and the role is always the same. Support the firstborn. That's always the role.
Yeah.
God's got everything vested in the firstborn. Somebody's got to support the firstborn. That's the role. So it's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, you think that much like Daniel was overtly what's the word I'm looking for? Encrypted or set aside for a later time,
Right.
sealed up.
Yes.
Much like that. You have to wonder of how things would change if it was so clear to people from the beginning. Let's just say that it was Boaz was taking and walked with instead of Chanowk, and Boaz built the Teb, the Teba, and Boaz, you know what I'm saying? It would how that would really confuse things moving forward, even though it is it makes sense to us now. To folks back then, how it would confuse that this, it would almost create this new deity type thing that keeps popping in and doing things for Yahowah, and it would confuse the situation. You know what I'm saying? It almost had to have a certain amount of figuring things out through it.
I think if they understood what Chanowk's name means and why Chanowk was taken, what Chanowk did to endear himself to Yahowah, which was only one thing he could have done, which is to support Dowd. And then you look at his timing, and then you look at how desperate the situation was with humankind, the Salma man. And people don't even know it's Nasalma man's that's the problem. It's not animals. Other animals were just fine, including other humans without a Nasalma, which were animals. God didn't have a problem with any of them. It was only Nasalma man. Nasalma man was a mess, and nobody understands that the more of us there are, the worse we become, so that the human mindset of it's popular, it must be true. You won the election democratically, you must be right. God's view is exactly the opposite. A lot of you, you're dead wrong. You're useless. You're counterproductive. And nobody seems to want to understand that. They don't understand that Adam actually isn't a name. It's a description of the first man, and it is the heart of it is blood, and how that relates to the Adamah from whom he was taken, the bloody red man of the earth. And the role that the Adamah plays in actually saving Dowd. I mean, it's the blood of the Adamah, is it not, that anoints the mercy seat that perfects Dowd when he returns. The whole story comes right back to the same situation, and it's the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, which is a productive bull, who was the bloody red man of the earth. And, it's the story of Obed-Edom and the man from Edom, because it means the same thing. Obed-Edom means works for man, works for Adam.
Mm.
So I think if they had done what we're doing now, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam would never have existed. That's my view. You can't go to the idiocy of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism once you know how. First of all, you know Yahweh's name. You know who Adam is, that he's the firstborn. You watch his various lives, and you come to understand the idea of Ruth and who she is. Your people are my people. Your God, my God. Where you go, I go, and I'm going to deliver through you, Boaz, the kinsman redeemer. If that doesn't put it all together for you, it even helps you understand that Israel and what we say now is Jew, it really is Yehud, and Yehudim in the plural, that it's a naming convention. It's not talking about an ethnicity. She was no different than Boaz the moment that your people are my people.
Yeah.
Because Yisrael is a naming convention. One day to the next, a bunch of Babylonians were called Yisraelites. Their DNA did not change. They were still Babylonians. They were just now called Yisraelites. And one of their sons was named Yehud. He was still a Babylonian. This is the truth. So it is a naming convention. It does not make you superior. If you think you're somehow superior to Goy, it's not true. God doesn't have anything against the Goy. He just says, I don't want you to follow in their religious and political ways. And of course, the Israelites became the most religious and political of all people, integrating religion and politics to an extent never seen before, which is the mess they're in right now with the Haredi and the Likud, taking Israel down the gutter. So, yeah, I think that if they had done what we did and just throw away all of the religious trash, just start clean. I want a clean slate. And I want to look at every one of these words, and I'm going to scrub them of all of the religious trappings and paraphernalia and get right down to their core meaning. And I'm going to come to know that it's Yahweh who is God and not a Hashem, not a Lord. I'm going to get to know him. I'm going to care about what he has to say. I'm going to prioritize his instructions. I'm going to go where his words lead. If you do that and you pursue all of this the way we're doing it, you can't be religious. God hates religion. The Torah is the story of God hating religion.
Yeah.
So I think if they had figured it out, there would have been no religion.
And we see that. We see that with so many people that newly come into the covenant. It's well, what do you do? It's always, what do you do for matzah? What do you do for Pesach? I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Whenever it's not about how you cook the lamb, it's not about you know what I'm saying. It is 100% about that reading, that understanding, and that relationship. And it takes time for people to get rid of that religious mind virus of what do I do? And you don't do the work of the Malaka.
I want to be careful here, and that while it is through our minds that we come to know Yahweh and we make the proper decision to respond to him, doing is essential.
Oh, sure.
If you don't follow the I know with the I do, you're nowhere with God.
Yeah, I was just speaking to this ritualistic nature of
course.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no. If you try to bypass understanding and you go immediately to the doing without the doing be a product of the understanding, you're still trapped in religion and all the other muck of men. Right. You'll never get anywhere if that's your approach. So I think you're correct in that. I think this is, I know it's going to sound controversial. I'm going to sound like I'm callous, and maybe I am. I mean, God crafted this personality on the basis of a bull's attitude anyway. I think God wanted it to work out this way. I think once God saw that many men were bad men, that he says we're going to have to come up with a way of calling them. And the Tiba was the first of many. The single most prominent tool for culling the herd is religion. Religion is the sieve. Politics is another. If you're religious, if you're political, then you are caught in that sieve and you're tossed away. So I don't think, again, this is my conclusion after doing this for 25 years and really coming into so much knowledge recently, is that I don't think God wants a lot of people. I think he's very, very happy with it being hundreds, maybe a few thousand of Israelites in the end, and some hundreds of covenant members. I think he's very comfortable with that. Yeah. And that he is not looking for more, and he knows that more is a burden.
Yeah.
Because we do not do well when there's a lot of us. We have a tendency to become an echo chamber, and we tend to echo the worst of us.
Yeah.
Which makes us chamas. It makes us violent. It makes us vile. God described in Solomon using two words that he repeated over and over again, and they are perverse, corrupt, vicious, and vile, rotten to the core. We're like the fruit that the birds have plucked some of, and it's begun to fester and ooze, and then it falls to the ground as a bunch of ooze, and all the little scavengers start eating it, and you walk over it, and it's just like it stinks to high heaven. Humankind is that fruit.
Yeah,
it's just disgusting. It stinks. It's rotten, and so I think he's actually looking for ways of eliminating people. I think that while God got very angry that the children of Israel were balking at the Gulf of Aqaba and didn't want to go across, and wanted to die right there and go back. Yeah, he bit his tongue and just told Moshe, "Would you raise the damn staff, please? Stop talking. Stop trying to convince them. I don't want you trying to convince them. Raise the damn staff and walk across the water, please. This is getting wearisome." They get across, and then when Aaron and the rest of them built the golden calf, it was just no nonsense at that point.
Yeah,
had the earth swallowed them. And when they became contentious again, and Moshe says, "Well, I guess we're going to find out who's right. If I'm right, then you're going to face a really stiff penalty. If you're right, then then I'm going to be the one that takes it on the chin." And the earth swallowed them. And when the group came back from visiting the promised land for the first time as spies, and they came back and they imagined seeing Nephilim and that they were all going to die, and it was it was a nice place, but it was filled with people that would made it impossible for them to move in. They were going to lose all of their loved ones, and God said, "No problem. You're all dead. Everybody over 20 years old, gone." God didn't say, "Oh, it's so sad," did he?
No.
He didn't say, let's talk this through. You had a bad reaction. We can work this out. He didn't say that either, did he?
No.
You're just gone. You're dead. You are dead to me. Goodbye. So God wasn't trying to maximize the number of people going into the promised land.
No.
So why would you expect him to change now and to want to have a huge number for the Shabua harvest or
that'd be starting out on the wrong foot, right? If we had a massive harvest, just the likelihood that we would be able to, not succumb to that group mentality, which is really so deadly. I mean, it really is.
The difference is, so here I go from translating to doing the show, and I sit down and I see there's Will's smiling face there. And, I said, one of the really nice guys of the Covenant family, always comfortable. You're class act, you know your material. We get along great. I'm very comfortable around you. I don't have zero, when you're going to be on the show, 0 words. And I would say that true of each of the people we've had now on the vlog. But there's a comfort level. Now, if there wasn't a sieve, like, for example, if we hadn't had that breakaway fractured family group, then here's, oh boy, what person am I going to get now? How am I going to be on my guard? What is somebody going to say that? And you're never going to be comfortable. So if God said, yeah, you can all play, you're never going to be. Can you imagine them? I mean, they said that last Shabuah was their harvest, baby. Mm-hmm. They set the date and stone, saying it's theirs. They're going. Nobody else is going. And it didn't happen for them.
Yep.
Got to be really desperate over there. And what are you doing now? You were wrong.
Yep.
You're a false prophet. You're wrong.
Right.
You're wrong about something that it wasn't a learning experience.
Yeah.
You can be wrong about some things that are minor along the way for not selfish reasons, and you learn along the way and you grow as a result of it, and that's a positive thing. Trying to claim that a very person that's been working with God for 6,000 years isn't, and he's deadly, and that you are now the voice of Spirit Mom who doesn't exist, and this is your harvest when it isn't.
That was a deadly error.
You're wrong about that. Now that's not a recoverable wrong there.
No, that was a deadly error.
That was a deadly error.
You're not going to recover from that.
No. So I think that there's a lot of lessons, gentlemen, and what Kevin brought up about why did it take so long for us to see these things. I've been doing this for 25 years, 12 hours to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for 25 years. That's well over 100,000 hours. That's a lot of time. Yeah. And some of these things, they're things I shared this morning, I learned this morning. Mm-hmm. So that's it's not exactly like they were there for, as I've said, I can tell you on the surface, the dimensions of the ark are 350 and 30. But is that what God's saying? Yeah, with the actual dimension of the thing, that times a foot and a half in each of those dimensions. Okay, sure. All right. We'll go with that. But is that why he told us? Because there wouldn't be any other purpose of telling us, right? We weren't building it. Right. Mm-hmm. So what was the purpose of giving us those dimensions? What is he trying to convey? And so first time to see it. So I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One is that God wants the man that he has chosen to work through to be exemplary of not perfection, not of total knowledge at the beginning, but of the very thing he's trying to achieve with all of us. Mm-hmm. He wants me to serve as an example like Dowd did. Was Dowd perfect? Hell no. Did Dowd start off with complete knowledge? No. So did Dowd get everything right? No. But did Dowd come through in the end? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so I think what he's trying to do is model that, to say, you can do this. They did it.
Yeah.
You can do this. This is doable. It's not like I came to you today, for example, and said, the word ark is invalid, and I want you to tell me why. I didn't do it that way, did I?
No.
No, and I didn't say what is the right word and what does it mean. What I did instead is to say, I was spending some time on it, and shame on me. It took me 25 years to look this up, and that's shame on me, but learned how we got ark. It's the wrong term. Here's the correct terms for both of them. This is what those terms mean. This is what we can learn from that. Isn't this cool? Mm-hmm. And that is what God wants us to convey, because we can all do that. And when you show somebody, this is how I went about recognizing what these things mean and what they mean to us and what these dimensions mean, there's no mystery in them. It's no, you don't have to be Einstein to have come to this conclusion. You just have to be willing to invest the time and right attitude and systematic approach, knowing Yahowah, wanting to reveal what he has to say. I think that the reason it's taken so long is that God wants to exemplify what he's trying to achieve. Growing by learning and correcting our mistakes, demonstrating we can be trusted because we're willing to do that and admit when we're wrong and explain what's right. I think that is something he values very much. Far more than he would value perfection, which he doesn't actually value at all. That's right. So but that's why I think it's part of the process. And what he wants you to have an appreciation is the curve that we're on, because that curve is where we're going. It exemplifies where we're going. It's taken us 6,000 years to get here. And during that 6,000 years, we kind of, and then now 7 years before we're put in the position where we're returning to the garden, well, now we're going.
Right.
I think he wants to exemplify that in a life. I think he wants to say, all right, you're 3D. Cool. You want to be 7D?
Mm-hmm.
You want to have an idea what that kind of empowerment and enrichment and enablement is all about? That's the going straight up. I think he wants to model that.
Yeah.
I think he wants to also model himself. God does not want to model himself as unapproachable. He doesn't want to model himself as being so much smarter than we are that we can't relate to him. And he wants to model himself as a patient, rational, interesting teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So when he chose to say, this is how we're going to go about communicating this, he picked a fellow that was pretty darn logical and rational and certainly approachable, and using him as a teacher. That's how he chooses to speak. And you can see this is what he's trying to model. And, the difference will be for covenant. You're going to have direct access to Yah and future growth, but you're going to be there because Yah chose to manifest himself in this way. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. So I think it's all for a lot of reasons. One is Yah was modeling what he likes, what he wants to achieve, what he's like. And the other is that God does have a sieve. He speaks in Yirmiyah 30 of that sieve and how important that sieve is. He says, I'm shaking it. And that sieve has a lot to do with those two luminaries who were spoken of in conjunction with it, and of that great slaughter that takes place at this time. But God says, the annoying people, I'm taking them away. This is a sieve. And so he's not looking for a lot of people. I think that one of the ways that we have a better appreciation for this is who really is the adversary? Who is Satan? Is Satan this anti-God fellow that has a desire to be worshipped as God, and as a rival to God that has gone amok? Or is Satan a cherub who is part of the Malach, the the Saba, the host, the messengers under command and control, no free will. And like the rest of the Malak, they are programmed to do exactly as God asks. And God, even the term ask is inappropriate here. God's nice about it, I'm sure. But God is saying to one, I want you to guard the Ark of the Covenant.
An order is still an order.
Right. I know exactly where it is. And your job is to guard it. You might have one or two people that try to approach it. One guy, it's kind of an interesting story. You let the guy check it out and the like, because he's dedicated his life to finding lots of things that I think are really interesting. So we'll let Ron Wyatt see it. But ultimately, it's the job of the bull to reposition it on the Ark of the Covenant. He has done it once before, as under the pseudonym Obed-Edom as the bull. So we're going to have him relocate it, and when he does, you'll accompany him and make sure nothing is disruptive. It's all handled appropriately. But he's been there guarding that Ark, not the Ark of the Covenant, the Aaron of the Bereth. I knew that I would even make my own mistake. This is going to be a challenge to correct this. But the Aaron of the Bereth, he's been there, that Malak, for 2,500 years that it's been there. And the 2,500 years for him is like 15 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
But they do what they're asked to do. And so my point is with Hasatan, the adversary, when you read what he had to say in the garden, it appears programmed to me. I think he's programmed to do this. And so I don't think for him, Sheol is a punishment for him. I think he did exactly as he said he was going to do. In fact, he's going to have his whole full contingent of devotees in Sheol. So the Christian view of him as a fallen angel and him being a rival to God, and it's just not true. He was programmed to do what he's doing because God has to have a filter. He's got to be able to draw people away because too many of us are a mess. So the real popular religions and human institutions are all there to eliminate people from the covenant.
Yeah,
it's a tough thing for people to swallow, but God's very clear in Yada Yah. He says, "I created good, I created evil. I'm responsible." He created Hasatan to do what Hasatan is doing, and he serves as the filter. If you're stupid enough to believe that man was a god and men killed God, and that you can honor God by the Pope's ghoulish, twisted, tortured, dead God on a stick, wearing a Dagon hat, then you're and worshiping Mary, who is the embittered and rebellious one. If you're stupid enough to go along with all of that, then the filter caught you.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's the simple nature of dichotomy. You can't have good without bad, right? Because there is everything is either good or bad then. If only one exists, then there is no idea of what is, because everything is good, right? So you can't have this idea. And it's the nature of being Kodesh. It's if you're set apart to Yah, there has to be something that is not Yahowah in order for there to be, for Kodesh to exist. And for that thing to be, you have to have the adversary, something adversarial to what you are, right?
Yeah, it's something that I've come to view quite differently than I viewed it even so much as a year ago. Recognizing the role of the tree of knowledge of Tob and Ra, good and bad. That tree is going to be right back in the middle of the garden when we return to it. Branches intertwined with the tree of lives. And the bad's not going to be scrubbed from it. You got to have knowledge of it. Otherwise, you have no way of appreciating where you are. When Adam and Chawah were in the garden originally, and there was no knowledge of bad, they had nothing to compare their situation to. And if you have no contrast, nothing to compare, you don't value it. There is no value if everything around you is hunky dory. If every field is filled with poppies and lollipops, what are you going to do? You have to have an occasional thorn and a weed to appreciate the difference. You need to see the contrast between a desert and a rainforest. So I'm convinced that tree of knowledge is going to have both good and bad, and that we have to have an appreciation of what bad is to be able to exercise good judgment. And we're going forward with Yah. As explorers, we have to have both the knowledge of good and bad and being able to appreciate and logically prefer and choose right over
One
wrong.
over the other.
But that has to be a choice, and it can't be a choice if there's only good.
That's right.
And nothing would be interesting. If we can't make a mistake going forward, let's just say we go off and we go to a solar system in some galaxy. And there's a bunch of us, God can even be with us, a bunch of us, and we say, all right, what if we try to do this and see if we can stir up a magnetic field and protect this planet from cosmic rays? And let's increase the size of the moon here, because that'll create both tides, and that has value. And we'll make certain we have tectonic plates and the like, because of the upwelling of the land and what that does on weather patterns and the like. And let's try to see how many of the things that were Earth-like that we can replicate here. And then let's have some fun and just use DNA, and we'll conceive some life forms. And if everything we do is right, then what's the point?
Right.
Why even bother? We're going to have to do as God did. He made a mistake when he created Nasalma man in the garden and then released him from the garden without some form of significant supervision. It didn't work. And that's when God came up with the idea, all right, I've got my supervisor. He's a hammer. He's a load. You should get a load of his wife too. But they'll get your attention, and that's what was needed. And so why wouldn't there be opportunities to learn? Can you imagine spending an eternity? I once upon a time I played golf. I would love to hit the ball over 300 yards and have a little right to left draw, and it roll out in the middle of the fairway, and then take an iron, flush it and watch it seek the pin. But what if every time I hit the second shot, it rolled in, never even got to putt? So every hole was in.
Second shot. If everything was an eagle, what's the point, right? You wouldn't even need a putter.
So, on a par four, they would all be an eagle. On the par threes, it would all be an eagle, which would be an ace. And on a par five, it'd be, an albatross. So how many holes are you going to play?
Yeah.
Where 1 and 2 is your only score.
Right.
I mean, it would be boring as hell. So, it's that Twilight Zone series where there was a guy that, everything he did, the pretty girl said yes on the date. He won every time he played the lottery. He won the lottery. Everything was always just perfect. And he says, I didn't deserve heaven. I was a pretty corrupt sort of fellow. And the warden finally says, why do you think this is heaven?
Right.
How hellish it would be. So why wouldn't we have bad going forward?
There has to be that.
Good.
There has to be that ebb and flow during, even during Sukkah, right? I mean, you have to have challenges, you have to have frustrations, because it's in overcoming these things that's what feels great. If everything is easy and predictable, you lose all that. You have to have an appreciation for the downside.
Right. And then what chance do you think we would have of rendering any soul that is that part of that mortal remnant, earning God's respect so that he says, I can empower them as covenant? If everything was easy, everything was cloistered, everything was perfect, what chance would we have of prevailing? The same chance that God did in the garden originally. He's smarter than us, and he was 0 for 2, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And we would be 0 for the group. There has to be challenges. There have to be failures. There have to be things to overcome. There have to be wrong mistakes for there to be right mistakes. There have to be challenges.
Yeah. Well, there also would have to be negative emotions like sadness, right?
Yes.
Sadness will have to be there.
Really. But great joy and the potential for when Dowd returns with Yahowah, he's very clear. You're going to be crying your eyeballs out.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So they do mix, and I think it's important for us to. And that's whole idea of this for me is, I think, is so reassuring, so comforting, to know that perfection is not part of the equation. Not now, not ever.
Yeah.
And that consistently seeing it through, consistently listening, learning, growing, correcting, improving, enduring.
Well, think about it. Yahowah saw it through, Yada. I mean, that's really what he did. I mean, early on in the Exodus, he realized he had a problem on his hands.
Mm-hmm.
This was not going to be easily resolved.
Yeah. I think we have
God saying, okay, this is bad, but I can fix this, but we're going to have to take into account that man in great numbers is really counterproductive. So we're going to have something much smaller, but Yahowah took a small family, and saw it through to the end, despite the fact that it started out as a calamity.
Sure. Calamity. Yeah. I think that if you look at God's statements throughout the Exodus as they permeate the Torah, he's almost always disappointed. And he goes from frustrated to just vehemently opposed to people. He is really, really disgusted. And it's over and over and over and over again. And there's sometimes he even expressed himself. He says, I had to have a timeout. I went and burned up everything around the encampment.
Yeah. That's
because I was so mad.
For sure.
And then I come in, and Moshe's mad at me and trying to kick sand in my face and blaming me and wants me to kill him. Oh my God. And then he says, okay. We can get them to the promised land. We can do that. We can get them to the promised land. I have a couple of guys, they'll take it from there. It's as God is saying, this is not going to work if I have to work with these people alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the most amazing things of all is God saying, no, when it was just me alone with Adam, it didn't work.
Right.
When it was me and Chawah and Adam, it worked even worse.
Mm.
So it is God's way of saying it. A bunch of you is really bad. And even if I'm going to relate to some of you, it's got to be by working through a few of you.
Yeah. You were mentioning being callous and controversial earlier. I'm going to be callous and controversial.
Okay, please.
It is much easier to train a dog with another well-trained dog. Okay. If you take a dog you have a dog that you have trained, it is very good. It knows set, stay, lay down. It knows how to do what you want it to do with simple commands. The other dog will follow that. And it is so much easier to train that second dog that way. I mean, we are just Neshama monkeys, but I'm just saying that the instructions, it comes much easier through another one, I mean, because monkeys see, they can see what,
they can relate to the other, other dog easier than they can relate to us as humans. But now look at the difference between Yahowah and us. And so what Yahowah is saying is that I can't relate to them. They can't relate to me. There's too big a gap between them. Way too big. Mm-hmm. And if I express myself in ways that it's my vocabulary and my thoughts, listen, they will never understand them. I mean, I can dumb them down through men and they still can't figure it out. So This direct communication is not going to work. So he may not be much, but I'm going to take somebody that's at least workable and a few people that are workable. And I'll communicate through those people that are workable to set the example for those other humans. And between now and the time that they are raised by me and taken to 7 dimensions, this is the best way for us to communicate. When the children of Israel told God to go away and to shut up, we never wanted to hear from you or see you again, his response wasn't at that point to say, how dare they say that?
Right.
It's my planet. I'll destroy you for that. He didn't say that, did he? He didn't say, let's try again. And, I really do want to relate to you. I created you for the purpose of relating to you. He didn't say that either. You know what he said? They're right.
Yeah.
They're absolutely right. I am not going to appear before them or speak directly to them again. They're right. It's better this way. And while we are 3-dimensional humans, it is better this way. And so 100% of the time since then, God has chosen to speak through individuals, usually men, sometimes women. He certainly did. He had a lot to say through the Amah. So sometimes through women, he communicated very nicely through Deborah, but mostly Ruth. But that's his approach, and that is the only approach he is going with. And for those who are religious and want their God to speak directly to them, I'm sorry, it's not what he does. It's just not how he's. You told him to go, shut up and go away, and he agreed with you. Yeah. So, you get the likes of us. I don't think that's so bad. I think it's actually a pretty interesting way because it's the fun of discovery. It's now you're learning from somebody who's like you. You're learning from the other dog. Why do you think that Yahowah called the one man that got it right, Koleb? Hebrew word for dog. Yeah.
Yeah, you can give a presentation to 50, 100 people, and because of free will, every person heard the exact same presentation, and there will be 100 representations of it afterwards because everybody internalized things differently, everybody associated things differently. No matter what the presentation was, they will all have their own spin on it in their memory, and so it will affect each one of them differently. So,
the other thing that's a possibility of this too is that if God just continued to communicate directly to the children of Israel, there he is, the big booming voice, the searing fire and all of that, then what about the rest of us? Then they had a special situation that is not replicated at any other time where the rest of us chop liver. And if they, with God's booming voice and his fire in their presence, chose not God, which is what they did, then why would there be any hope for the rest of us?
Right.
But if God chooses to speak through men, and one of those happened to be Moshe, and he wrote it all down, then why are we in any different position than everyone else? We're actually in a superior position now than were the children of Israel, because not only do we have the exact same message written by the same person the same way, but we have all of the works of the prophets that came after so that we can understand it far better than they could. And we have far better tools to study it than they did. We have how the whole story has played out over the last 6,000 years to consider. And we have science to say, yeah, that's really right. And we have archaeology to say, yeah, that's really right. And now the prophecy proves that it's really right. And at the time, there was no prophecy because while the statements were issued, they hadn't yet been fulfilled. So it puts us in a vastly superior position rather than an inferior position, which we would have been if everything was God's booming voice and burning fire. So it had the great advantage for the rest of us, recognizing that it didn't matter if there was a advantage for the children of Israel during the Exodus because they chose not God.
Right.
So none of what was revealed was for their benefit.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine, but that's true. Nothing that was revealed was for their benefit because they didn't capitalize on it. You had a barely okay Yoshua ben Nun. You had one really good speech from Caleb. You had Moshe getting him to the promised land, but giving up multiple times, doing multiple face plants, twice telling God that he was flat out wrong, and he's cursing God. And at the end, when God says, simple instruction, talk to the rocky crack and don't beat the damn thing. Going to get beaten later.
Right.
Talk to him. He is the guy that's going to finally make this all work. So don't beat him. And he didn't get that right, but God didn't get mad and said, okay, it was a damn tough job. I'm going to show you what the promised land is going to. He gave the aerial tour, the magic carpet ride over the promised land, got to see the whole thing, and is greatly esteemed and appreciated by God for seeing it through. A really, really, really tough job, a thankless job, an impossible job.
Yeah.
So, the marvelous story, well told, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. You can empathize with Moshe a little bit, can't you?
Yeah.
Boy. Yeah, if God had, you see, there are times when God inserts full-grown men and women. The Ruth and her husband as Ethan Hajraki, full-grown man, probably inserted at 70 years old. And when you do that, you come with full knowledge. So, I could have written the 30 mashal in a weekend. And I could have said, okay, Dowd, this is how you're going to write the Mizmor. And obviously the 89th Mizmor is the most insightful lyrics ever scribed. So you come back and you're on your game. You know exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times when you're actually born and you have to grow into the role, and you have the character that got you to the right place in the previous life. It's there. So you've got the wherewithal. You have some heritage. God just knows that you're going to pull it off because of what he has done with your character and his spirit and the like. But so there's a little bit of both. There are times when you have to figure it out. You start from scratch, but by the time you get to the end, you know exactly where you've been. And the whole story becomes knowable to you. And sometimes it just starts off with the whole story being knowable to you. It all depends on the situation. Yeah. I think that Boaz and Ruth were both born the old-fashioned way in that story. But when they were reinserted from going from grandparents to secular parents, there'd been no reason to go through all that again. They were just inserted the story. That's why the one genealogy on Ethan Hajraki doesn't pertain to the Ethan Hajraki that co-authored the 89th Mizmor. They're off by 1,000 years and long generations, and that bear nothing in common. He was just inserted. My Dowd and El Dowd? I don't think there'd be any reason for them to have been born as slaves in Mitzrayim.
Right.
Michael and Gabriel, inserted as adults. When Dowd returns, he's coming back as an adult. When Elia and I arrive on the Temple Mount, we are not coming back as babies. We're not going to have 3 years of goo goo gaga. Coming back as full men, full knowledge of where we've been.
Yeah.
So I think it fits the occasion. Let's do a few blogs, shall we?
Sure.
God's perfect timing. It's just amazing how the religious, don't know that God has a name or why that name's important. And they want to ascribe perfection to God. But God himself announced that he's not perfect. So why would you do that? And when you establish that as perfection, then you put yourself in a position where you can't be in his presence unless you're perfect. And you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put all sorts of rules where you're looking for a perfect Passover lamb, and there's no such thing.
Right.
So now you're dealing with what is tamim, and how is it based on the tamam, and what does that mean, and how does that apply to both God and to man? And you learn that no, it's what God is interested in is not perfect, but conclusive. And so God doesn't have perfect timing. What he has is that which is almost complete, and it will soon be complete. We have 3.5 mikre to resolve, and we'll complete the process. And that's what God wants. Just get her done. See it through. Be loyal and devoted and steadfast and see it through. It's about completing that matter, not about perfect or the timing. Get her done.
Yeah, well, like finishers and closers and not perfectionists, right?
Mm-hmm. Lots of emphasis on finishing and closing. Yes.
They missed the point here on this one, didn't they? The Jerusalem Post.
Israeli officials say emerging Iran doing it bad as a bad deal. What they what's being touted on social media in terms of the nature of this deal was reported by the 3 countries with government-owned media that have been given the deal that Trump has accepted. It's not Trump's deal. It's not a good deal. It's Iran's deal. You know, when Trump was pictured himself, he was holding those ONU cards, and I was saying, I'm holding all the cards. You know, the purpose of that game is you win the game when you have no cards.
Right.
Yeah.
He couldn't even play his meme correctly.
Right.
Yeah, he has no cards. And this negotiation, and it is a very, very bad deal. He keeps on wanting to say, that Obama's JOPCA was a bad deal, and that he has a good deal, and nobody knows what his deal is. So he's saying that no one knows what his deal is, but yet he says that the deal is almost complete in its negotiation, which means that somebody has to know what the deal is. So you can't have both. It's just like his thing where he's saying it's a mandatory recommendation.
Yeah.
You can't have a mandatory recommendation. You're playing with oxymorons here, but you're playing with a moron, so it wouldn't be a surprise situation. Israel put itself in a position where any deal to end the Iran war is a bad deal. That's what they missed. Is that when they decided they would decapitate Iran by killing its most respected leaders, where they would bomb them for the second time in a year, killing even school children, and act like the belligerents and the bullies on the block after destroying Gaza and now bombing Lebanon for the second time. What Israel didn't figure out is there's no way out of this. And let me tell you the scariest part of the whole thing is that when Trump said that it's going to be mandatory that Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates sign an agreement to normalize relationships with Israel as part of the Abraham Accords. Mandatory that you do that. That's the worst possible scenario. Put yourself in the position that you're one of these despots over the private estates with flags. If you normalize relationships with Israel and abandon the Fakistinians, your own people will rise up and kill you.
Yeah.
And if you don't, the Iranian Shias, if the war goes on, they will destroy you. They will make certain that there's no electricity for air conditioning, no electricity for water desalinization, and no importing of food. Your people will starve. They'll roast, and they'll die of thirst.
Riot. Mm-hmm.
And they'll riot. And so you're in a position where there's nothing you can do. And if you do what Saudi Arabia did, which is to say, you know, the only way you could even fathom this is to have a Fakistinian state, then you're forcing that on them. And if you force that on them, how are they going to respond to it? Because they don't respect you. They know that you have no clout. And if the choice is you continue to abandon us and you attack Iran again, and Iran takes us out, finishes our oil refineries, finishes its control of the strait, finishes our desalinization plants, and precludes the return of any food. So if we don't go along, we're destroyed. And if we do go along, you're forcing us to accept a deal with the enemy of our religion for 14 centuries, where our Quran tells us that we have to prevail over them. And our Quran tells us that if we capitulate to them in any way, that our God is going to torture us in the hottest places in hell. And that's the choice you're giving us. So what does it do? It simply makes the situation more impossible. So the first thing that would happen is after a Fakistinian state is created, all of the heads of state know that the Fakistinians are miserable people, that they're the worst of Muslims, and that their entire mindset is to burn the whole world down. Mm. That's what they want. Yeah. They want the war to end all wars, the great jihad, and it is a war against the entire world, a fight to the death. And they know that is the mindset of the Fakistinians. That's why support for Fakistan and Fakistinians is officially outlawed in almost all of those countries. You know, when you see all the protests of Fakistan will be free, they're not in any Islamic country.
Yeah.
No,
because they know them. And the leaders of those countries know that kind of jihadist is unstoppable. They will not refrain from jihad until the entire world is engulfed in war. So if they agree with this, they are igniting the flames of the great jihad, and they don't want that because that would destroy their fiefdoms, their personal estates. It's gone. Mm. And yet, if they don't demand it, their own people will rise up and kill them because their countries are overwhelmingly young, with Muslims who have no sense and nothing to do with their lives. But if you have no purpose in your lives, you are self-focused. And if you're in your own head and you've got nothing to do with your life, you're a miserable person. And you are like all conspiracy nuts. Your own life is meaningless. And so you're looking for somebody else to blame. And so the preponderance of the young people, which comprise 65% of all of those private estates with flags in the Sunni Arab fiefdoms, 65% of the population's under the age of 25. Wow. Not even 1% of them is gainfully employed. They have meaningless lives. And under that scenario, they're all conspiracy buffs that are cooked in Islam. And so they're naturally taught to hate Jews, to blame Jews for everything, to celebrate the annihilation of Jews while blaming Jews for their miserable lives. You You cannot solve that. And that is what you're unleashing, whether you create a fake Estonian state or you avoid it. That is what you're creating. And so yes, it is a bad deal, but there are no good deals here. Israel had the opportunity to make 5 choices that are recommended to them. Had they made them on 10/7 of 23, they would have had nothing but a marvelous situation today. They wouldn't have to deal with any Muslim nation around them because they would be living free and safe, prosperous lives. But they didn't. They did exactly the opposite. And now they put themselves in a situation where there's only bad deals, and all they have done is double down on it. The guy in the middle there, Netanyahu, and his coalition have destroyed Israel. And I know that Israelis don't want to hear that, and they'll say you're anti-Semitic by saying it, but that it's the truth. They have destroyed Israel such that now there are only bad situations, and there isn't a single expert witness on any of the YouTube programs which are intellectually based, where they have only guests that have world-class acumen and their understanding of the subjects that they're discussing pursuant to the United States and Iran and Israel and the like. To a person, every single one of them knows that if this deal occurs, it's the end of Israel. Because it means that Israel has been abandoned by the United States, that Israel can't not continue the war, and Israel can't continue the war. It's the ultimate catch-22. They cannot continue the war alone because they can't survive it. And they cannot survive if they don't continue the war because of the animosity they have built up. And so everybody that I listen to, and I listen to a pretty wide cross-section of people, and I'm pretty astute on understanding the situation that we're in. And I'm here to tell you that Israel's cooked. It's not only that this is a bad deal for Israel. There are no good deals.
There are no good deals. Exactly. There are no good deals for Israel at this point. They have literally put themselves in a horrendous box. I don't know what it is they want. They're on this cycle of destruction, and with every bomb that goes off and every terrorist you killed, you're just inflaming the region more and more. And I don't think they could have lost the people of the world any more than they have. It's just.
Right. They could not have done a worse job of international relations and losing the world. That they're at a level now where there isn't a single country in the world that has a favorable view of Israel.
That's right.
And here are the victims of grotesque apartheid and genocide, who are the most inspiring people in the world in terms of what they have achieved as a people, being given their own state and making a desert bloom, and being extraordinarily beneficial to the world in terms of scientific and medical advancements.
No doubt.
And a people that are constantly harassed and picked on by Muslims and Marxists, and who have been so abused by them and yet still survive. They should be the shining example of the best in us. And yet they are hated more than any other people in the world. There's no country on earth that's hated as much as Israel. And Netanyahu and his government, the Haredi and the Marxists in Israel collectively, have destroyed it. There's nothing they could have done that could have made the situation any worse than they already have. And they've done such a horrendous job. There is no way out of this. So Israel, you don't have a leader that can, you have elections later this year. It doesn't matter who you elect. It's over. When we came to understand that what Shabua is doing is announcing the beginning of the time of troubles, and that while there is a harvest of standing grain, it's insignificant when compared to its purpose as the forward bookend for the time of troubles. And the reason the harvest is meaningless is threefold. I'd be surprised if there are much more than 80 people that God's going to trust enough to take. They're only going to be gone for a very short period of time. And if we valued our removal during that harvest more than we valued how important it's going to be that Israel is entering the time of trouble and warning Israel of this is your plight, this is how you have gotten here, and this is the only way out. If we valued our vacation and therefore the harvest over that, then we wouldn't deserve to be there. That was the thing I was trying to emphasize yesterday and the day before, is that our mindset matters. Are we in our own heads, or are we out there doing the right thing for others, which is ultimately beneficial for us? Sure. But when you go to what that breakaway group did, Shabu is our harvest, and you set the harvest as the defining aspect of it, you're not worthy of it.
Yeah, they pivoted.
And
right
so when we came to realize this is why this exists and why this is essential, because Israel over 3,400 years, and really 4,000 years when it goes all the way back to Abraham, you've been obnoxious. You've been rebellious. You've estranged yourself from God. You erased his name. You erased his name from your name. You've written over his Torah with your Talmud. You've been belligerent. And that is not going to change suddenly in the last 7 years without something catastrophic occurring.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the best thing that could possibly happen, because it's going to be catastrophic for Israel.
And catastrophic from an Israeli standpoint, too. Something that we may not be able to understand in the United States is the fact that there are millions of people within 30 miles driving distance that want to kill you, right? I mean, catastrophic is, it's very difficult for us in the United States to think of, that situation bad, where that is a consistent threat of life and limb when you walk out and go to the bus station in the morning,
right.
I mean,
that within your own country, there are as many Muslims who have been indoctrinated to view killing you as the highest act in their religion, the thing that is most pleasing to your God. There are as many of them as there are of you in your own country. And then surrounding you, you're outnumbered 100 to 1 by those who hate you, who want to annihilate you and exterminate the Jewish people and completely overwhelm the land. Claim it for their own. That is the position that
just
you're in.
fall out of the sky at random times of the day. Explosions.
And you wouldn't be in that, right? And you wouldn't be in that position if it weren't for two religions, actually three religions. It's you needed Judaism to create the other two. But this is really important to get across to Israel, because our purpose now is what we're saying right now. Our purpose now is to be the voice of reason, telling Israel, this is where you are. This is how you got here. This is your immediate future. And this is your only rational and informed option. That is our purpose. We have no other purpose now but that one.
Yada Yah.
And yeah, that is it. Yada Yah. Go to yadayah.com. The reason that anti-Semitism exists in the world today is singular. Singular. Everybody wants to have, they asked Netanyahu in 60 Minutes about anti-Semitism, and it was this, that, and the other thing, and it's been endemic for years. And they want to say it goes all the way back to the Babylonians 2,500 years ago. Nonsense. The Babylonians could care less about Israel or Yehudah. The fact is that the Israelites, it was mostly Yehud at that point, were playing both sides against the middle. They were going to Egypt to try to help Asher against Babylon, just as they sided the other side. They were and they're paying, tributes to all manner of people. That's why the prophet says, don't do this. This is really stupid. This is going to burn your britches. And so they turned away from God, and they tried to buy peace by placating the despotic regimes around them and playing one against the other. And every time they played a side, they played with the losing side, and they got creamed. That had nothing to do with anti-Semitism.
No.
Their leaders were like Netanyahu. They led them astray. They made alliances with the wrong people. Anti-Semitism has a singular cause: Pauline Christianity. Paul came up with the lie that Jews killed his God. And it permeates the Christian text. And it's not just that he came up with a lie that Jews killed his God, which is pretty stupid, because that means that his God was a man and that men could kill his God, which makes it really, really, really stupid as a religion. A lot of stupid people in this world. But he went further. He said, so the whole basis of replacement foolology, using my term, is that because the Jews killed my God is really pissed. And my God is not going to honor any of the promises he has made to them. He's going to renege on all of those promises he has made to them, thousands of them. He's going to renege on all of the prophecies that he has made, thousands of them. And he's going to choose the religion of the Goy that he has spoken vociferously against and side with us, and all of those promises that he made to the Jews while warning them not to follow the religious ways of the Goy, he's going to give to the religious Goy. And so the Jews are hated by God. They're subhuman. They're demonic. And if you want to please this new man God, you're going to hate and demonize and dehumanize Jews. That is the reason that Europe treated Jews like dogs, like worse than dogs. That is the reason they were subjected to living in shuttles. That's the reason they were only in ghettos. That's the reason they couldn't own property. That's the reason they couldn't start businesses. That's the reason they couldn't have bank accounts. That's the reason they couldn't vote. That's the reason why everything in the society was done to scapegoat them. That is why they were constantly being terrorized. They were being harassed and abused and murdered. By whom? The church. The church is what demonized Jews. Christianity is the cause of anti-Semitism. When the damn Christians complain in Israel that they're being treated unfairly and they're being spat at and they don't have full rights, you deserve it.
Look at the rhetoric now.
You shouldn't even be there.
Yes.
Yeah, look at the rhetoric now.
Right now, they think the Abraham Accords is a great idea.
Yeah. Look at so the very fact is that the cause of anti-Semitism is the Christian New Testament and the Roman Catholic Church. And it is what caused the Holocaust. It's not the Nazis. It wasn't even the Nazis with Muslims. It's because of the damn Roman Catholic Church and Christianity that had poisoned the minds of Europeans to the point that they thought it was a good idea. Let's torture Jews. Let's rob them. Let's kill them. Let's exterminate them, even the children. So it's Christianity. Yeah. And Christianity exists because rabbis trained Paul to be a rabbi. To quote mine, and to misrepresent everything God said, to invert what God said, to erase his name, and to completely upend what he said with what but I say. And that is the essence of Christianity. There's not a single quote from the Torah, prophets, and Psalms that's accurate. And the whole argument is I can take everything God said about Dowd as the Messiah, as the Son of God, as our Savior, and I can steal it from him, and I will apply it to this stupid misnomer that never existed. And oh, by the way, with the rabbis there knowing what it says in the 89th Mizmor, knowing what it says in the 22nd Mizmor, knowing what it says in the 18th chapter of the Devarim and the Torah, knowing what it says in Yeshaya 9 and Yeshaya 53, knowing what it says about Dowd, let it happen. And rather than responding and saying everything you're saying is nothing but a pathetic ripoff of Dowd as the Messiah and the Son of God, who was the one that was crucified, we were given the exact date he would be crucified. He told us in Daniel. Mm-hmm. You've done nothing but lie here. But they didn't say that. Instead, they promulgated a false Messiah of their own, Bar Kokhba. So the rabbis are responsible for Christianity, and Christianity is responsible for anti-Semitism. And then you want to deal with the Muslims that we talked about, where there's 2 billion of them that want every Jew dead, that want to control Israel because that's what their God demands of them. And I don't say this haphazardly. Look, if you want to know any of this, I've got the 5 volumes of Twistianity. Read them. I prove everything I'm saying about the nature of that fraudulent religion and how it was conceived. But I've also got the 5 volumes of goddamn religion. 4,200 pages of absolute proof that rabbis are the reason the Quran exists. They sold Muhammad Talmud stories, which he used to fill the Quran with all the characters of the Torah. And he twisted them to serve his situation. And without the rabbis, there is no Quran. There is no Islam. And those 2 billion people that you think are somehow negotiable, that you can form a deal with, and a treaty, an Abraham Accord with, because they mention the name of Abraham in their goddamn Quran, because they bought the story from your rabbis. Yeah. And of course, when Muhammad knew that they were right, and the rabbis were mocking him for claiming that Allah revealed what they had read to him, he slaughtered them. Kabar, Yahud. Kabar. Yahud. Kabar, yeah. And they still can't figure it out. So Israel's toast. And the only person alive that knows why Muslims hate them and why it can't be resolved and why Christians created anti-Semitism, and that can't be resolved. And that the rabbis are the core problem for Israel. You're listening to him. He is the one and only. And so this is our time. And so the idea of God removing us at this critical junction, you think that God hates his people? This is their only hope. I mean, there is no one and nothing out there that comes anywhere close to this. That's why I've been so insistent that everybody within the covenant family accepts some responsibility. Do your own show. Start producing it. Talk about who you are, how you came to know Yahowah, what you're going to do with your life, how you're going to make it count. That is where we are. And the only voice that's countering him that's not anti-Semitic. In fact, we are the most pro-Semitic people in the world because Shem means name. And oh, by the way, on David's second of 6 lives, he was Shem.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Jeff calls it Philo-Shemitic.
Philo-Shemitic. And he's right. So it's bad. And there is only one good. Shub for shub. Mm-hmm. Or no shub for you. You need to return to Yahowah. I understand the Leia's actually written a song, Shub for shub or no shub for you. We haven't done the graphics for it yet, but there is one in the hopper that is on shub. Yeah.
Nice.
But that is the answer.
Yep.
Well, we're at 2 hours.
There next. Okay, we'll do one more. Oh. One of the great lies, I would say it's the second most deadly lie among men. God told us about this in Shemuel. Remember when the people voted for Saul, and Shamuel went to Yahowah and said, "I have failed you." They want a king in the order of the Goyim, and so that means a Goyish government and integration of religion and politics. And Shamuel was distraught, and Yahowah said, "No, they didn't fail you. They rejected me." Is what they have done. And then Yahowah delineated the 12 things that were going to happen as to why human governance is terrible. And many of them revolve around that he is going to force your sons to fight for him. Then he's going to tax you to build the war equipment that is used, that he's going to deploy to rob neighbors to increase his land holdings and his wealth, and to control the people through this process. And he went on to say, this is what's going to happen. And we see it happening now. And it's been this way now for a very long time, where people are convinced that the military, which is the epitome of non-freedom. If you were in the Roman legions, your life was worthless. You had absolutely no freedom. Matter of fact, if you even failed in battle, they'd just as soon torture and kill you. And if you retreated, your whole family would be wiped out and you'd be tortured to death. There's no freedom in it. Sparta was the longest lived oligarchy. It wasn't actually a democracy, but because there were no surviving democracies, but an oligarchy. And their sons were essentially slaves to war. And their women's were slaves to making slaves for war. The U.S. military is the least free institution in the United States. So if you want to talk about freedom, stay away from the military. You'll have no freedom in the military. There isn't a single situation where the U.S. military defended America's freedom. Not one. Ever. Even the Revolutionary War, it wasn't the U.S. military. It was militias that ultimately defeated the British. And by the way, the vast majority of Americans liked the deal with the Brits at the time. The taxation was exceedingly low. It went up exponentially after the Revolution and even during the Revolution. And most say, this is a pretty good deal we've got. And tremendous freedom and very low taxation and no war. And you had this means of patrolling the seas to make certain you could trade. And it was among the things that Britain did was one of the few that it was actually favorable for the people, with the exception of the indigenous people, which the Brits and the others that came here were vicious towards. Wasn't so good for the natives, but anyway, you can't credit that. And the Civil War, it was brother against brother. It was, in fact, what the Civil War was all about is you do not have freedom. As a state, you can choose to become one of the states if we approve you, but you can't leave. You have no freedom to leave. That means you're not free. Succession is what caused it. And the North said, no, you can't succeed. We kill you if you succeed. So there's no freedom in the military. In World War II, we did not fight for American freedom. The Japanese weren't invading Japan. They just wanted our warships not to interfere with them. And in Europe, we hung around in the UK for years before we started moving towards Germany. At the time, the Russians had virtually ended the conflict. It a great loss of life, but we weren't fighting for American independence.
No.
Certainly in World War I, we weren't. I mean, the whole lie of sinking the Lusitania and rallying around the oligarchs to fight a war for the benefit of the oligarchs. What a terrible decision. We didn't fight for American freedom in Vietnam. Lost 60,000 Americans for the military-industrial complex. There was no American freedom involved in Afghanistan or in Iraq, and yet we invaded both places, killed millions of people. no American freedom at risk in Iran. None in Libya.
Nope.
None in Syria. No, the U.S. military has nothing to do with American freedom. They have to sell the myth for the military-industrial complex to prevail and for them to be able to control people, because so long as you have a military, you can't rebel against your country.
Mhm.
So this is a terrible problem that exists. This is my phone. For those who don't know, my wife is out in Florida, and sometimes when she's on her own, Leah does not do well on her own. She's there for medical treatments, but she does not do well on her own. So I always have my phone beside me so that I can intervene, as we had to do numerous times yesterday. I will tell you that the service of American and appropriate management of Americans Airlines is pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
She was bumped off 2 flights and treated like dirt yesterday. Just American Airlines, shame on you. It was complete and total dereliction of duty and abuse of a customer. But anyway, that's why I have my phone, and I still have it available even here during the show, knowing that it could ring. That was not her. So that's why I silenced it. While she's gone, I'm tethered to the phone.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to know that there are no heroes in the U.S. military. That the U.S. military has never fought for American freedom. And the U.S. military is the least free institution in the country. And that what's being used, the way the U.S. military is being used now to kidnap people and to invade countries and for regime change, is despicable. You know, you're going to be slathered as immoral.
Yep.
What you're doing is grossly immoral if you're part of that. The commander-in-chief now is Satan. He is Rahab. He is the devil in the flesh, not figuratively, not symbolically, for real. And so for those who are marching as a Memorial Day and we have to support our veterans, no, you don't, and you shouldn't. And America would be vastly better if it wasn't spending $1 trillion, squandering $1 trillion, making bad situations worse around the world with its military. And America
2/3 of the
would be
budget.
freer. Yeah.
2/3 of what we spend money on is military or free stuff for other for people. You know, 2/3 of.
You've got the entire government is a complete waste. You can reduce the size of the U.S. government by 99.9% and have more productivity and more freedom. It is a complete waste. Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. And socialized medicine is useless medicine. It's not productive anywhere. Socialized anything is. That's what God's whole issue is. That's what the point he's trying to make, is that the larger the institution, the worse it is. It becomes flat out wicked and corrupt, graft stealing, abuse of people. Socialized medicine is a horrible thing. Yeah. Social Security is a horrible thing. A government trying to rob people of their livelihoods and their freedoms, which is what they have to do to sponsor these things, is a horrible thing. And the military is the worst of the worst. So the 3 big line items of the U.S. government at $1 trillion apiece: wealth redistribution through a Ponzi scheme that is grossly inappropriate and taxing to the country; socialized medicine, which destroys what it delivers; and a military that is wholly counterproductive; and a bankrupt country on top of that is involved in everything imaginable that's horrible. And it's now America is the second most hated country on earth: Israel, and then America. But what do you expect if you got Satan in charge?
Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, we've had a 2-hour conversation, I guess 2 hours and 15 minutes at this point. So I hear from the crowd, maybe we should call it a day here. As you probably know that I could talk about these things forever, because I just think it's a time that we're delivering a message that no one else on earth is delivering. It's sobering at a time the world is drunk on itself.
And it's the only message worth hearing right now. It's the only light in this very dark world.
And it's being thwarted now by social media and the influence of artificial intelligence. AI has become the enemy of morality, of truth, of reason, of people's livelihoods, which is essential to their character, and to their ability to think, which is essential to their value. That is what AI is robbing. It is our greatest enemy. And so this is a voice in opposition to that. Well, gentlemen,
Thank you.
Genuine pleasure to speak with you, Will. It's always an honor. You're a fine man. I respect you and love your son. And doing programs with you is always fun. And Kevin, you're a good guy, man. I mean, we'd be in a real pickle without you. You're the glue that keeps this all together. But it's not just the fact that you outwork the rest of us, and that you are the go-to guy for almost everybody in getting things done. Yeah, you are the man that gets it done. But you've got keen wit, great knowledge. You're a delight to call brother, friend, co-host. And covenant member.
That's great.
Rich, I know you're feeling bad. You keep on standing up, trying to get it to work. Rich says he's having slight improvements with the leg. He doesn't like it when I call him a clot rancher, but he's on his meds. They're supposed to be making some progress, but
good.
We'll just see. He says, "All right, don't send me a text. Don't tell me how you're feeling." He says that makes me feel really bad. So we just ignore him. He's how's you doing, Rich? Fine. I'm doing fine. So,
just put some dirt on it.
Put some dirt on it. It'll feel better. Just put some dirt on it.
There it is.
Yeah, the old sandbox trick. Wookie is over there saying, "Oh no, he's good. I like him." Yeah, Rich is
nothing wrong with Rich. Rich is all good.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Rich, man. He's my buddy. Yeah, Ash. Oh yeah, Kara's at his feet, and Asher's is there too. So, yep, Rich is the dog whisperer. They all know he's the good guy. So, well, anyway, thank you for a marvelous show. We look forward to being with you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Very good, guys. Good being with you.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch Yah on our next podcast.